The person who essayed me 7 years ago sent me a DM confessing it. Posted by u/Keels01. For the sake of anonymity, I am going to keep this long story short. I was essayed in college by a man I did not know and did not ever express interest in. He followed me home from a party, snuck into my building, and waited until my male friend who walked me home that night, to get away from him, left my building to come bang on my door. At the time, I was an 18-year-old white female, and this was a smallish college town in the South. I had a lot more evidence than typical campus essay cases, witnesses, text messages, essay kit, and this was not the type of guy that made one horrible mistake. If nothing happened, I knew he would 10,000% do it to another girl, which is why I felt it was my responsibility to try to do something. By the time the DA finally officially told me they weren't going to do anything 2 years later, because it's difficult to prosecute when alcohol is involved, it was too late for me to pursue a civil suit. It might be worth noting that the man comes from money, and a lot of it. I also found out they never analyzed my essay kit, let alone investigated the crime scene. There were a few other things that were pretty sketchy about the police investigation and DA's handling of the case, but I can't get too specific on here. It kind of felt like they were doing everything in their power to not prosecute, and there's literally nothing on his record to show for it, not even a dropped charge. It took me a long time to truly move on and accept that I did what I could, but I finally did. And then a week or so ago, 6.5 years later, I realized I had unread message requests on Facebook from a month prior and saw I had something from him. We were not Instagram friends. There were various messages in a row that clearly demonstrate he is not well mentally, but more importantly, at the end he said, "So I guess I essayed you. I won't do it to anyone else ever." I was shook. I sent it to the DA's office, who were utterly shocked, and the next day said they'd get back to me in another week, but that I shouldn't get my hopes up because this kind of stuff is really complicated and difficult to prosecute. While they haven't told me officially yet that they aren't going to prosecute, I know in my gut it's not going to happen. They'll find an excuse. So I know I need a lawyer, so please don't give that to me as advice. I am posting this question to see if anyone's ever been through anything similar and knows of nonprofits, resources, or pro bono lawyers that might be able to help. I can't sue him, statute limitations, and I can't really sue the government, uphill battle, but I also can't just let this go again. If there's anything I've learned recently, it's that things and systems don't change by staying quiet. What can I do to both get a mark on his record and shed light on the justice system that failed me and I'm sure many others? /relevant comments. Commenter. Do you have any essay and domestic violence crisis centers in your area? You might be able to connect with an advocate there, who can help you navigate your legal options, since they work with the court system a lot and know a lot about victim rights in their areas. Ops response. The victim's advocate I've had since it happened has done absolutely nothing for me, other than express her sympathy and attempt to justify why the DA won't take on my case. Commenter 2. The victim's advocate works for the DA. Do you have someone from a nonprofit or a similar advocacy group who can help you navigate the system? Ops response. I think this is really what I need. I haven't been able to find someone on the local level, small town, and have been trying to figure out if there's any group on the national scale that could help me with this. Thank you, I'll keep doing my research to see what I can find. Commenter 3. I second the advice to contact political representatives, as well as state-level legal alternatives and a victims advocacy org. How did the police or detective assigned to you handle things? Were they supportive? Ops response. The police were absolutely horrendous. I had more PTSD from them than the actual event. Extremely old school. Told me that if my witnesses wanted to make a statement, then I had to ask them to call in on my behalf. Also told me essay kits were really expensive to analyze, and that Texas was out of their jurisdiction to arrest him. That's where he went the day after it happened. There's a whole lot more to this story than I could type on a Reddit post. Update 5 years later. 5 years ago, I got a Facebook message from the person who essayed me, 7 years after the assault. He didn't apologize, but his message reopened every wound I'd spent years trying to heal. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I wasn't going to let it go this time. From my first experience trying to get the case prosecuted, I knew it wouldn't be easy. So, I turned to r/legal advice on Reddit, asking what to do. I got hundreds of responses and DMs. One was from a prosecutor in another state, thank you, Miles Bracho, who gave me legal and emotional support and confirmed what I already suspected about how hard this would be. Another survivor reached out and connected me to her lawyer, who ended up representing me. That lawyer then connected me with the Pennsylvania Coalition Against SA, PCAR, and their legal team, who stood by me through the process. When months passed with no movement, we went to the media. The Associated Press broke my story, and soon after, ABC's Good Morning America picked it up. The pressure worked, and charges were finally filed, but Ian was nowhere to be found. In 2024, he was identified in France, extradited, and this week, 5 years after that Reddit post and 12 years after the assault, he was sentenced to 2 to 4 years in prison. Justice was finally served. And it all started with Reddit. So many kind, helpful people showed up for me when I needed it most and didn't know what to do. Thank you, Reddit community. The AP News article, post-sentencing. October 20, 2025. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. AP, a man who sent a Facebook message that said, "So I essayed you," to a woman he had essayed in college in 2013 was sentenced to 2 to 4 years in prison on Monday. The sentence came more than a year after Ian Cleary was extradited back to Pennsylvania from France over the assault at Gettysburg College, and nearly 12 years after the victim first went to police. The judge took into account Cleary's guilty plea, his remorse, and his long history of mental illness in giving a sentence below state guidelines. Cleary, 32, said he sent the messages as part of a 12-step program, in hopes of seeking atonement. Victim Shannon Keeler told the court on Monday that the messages only reopened wounds she had long carried over the assault, which went years without being prosecuted. "The system meant to protect me protected you instead," said Keeler, detailing in a powerful 10-minute impact statement the years she spent pursuing charges, which prosecutors are often reluctant to file in campus essay cases. "This isn't just my story, this is the story of countless women," she said. Cleary faced a maximum of 10 years in prison for the attack, and the two sides had initially proposed a 4 to 8 year sentence. Andrea Levy, Keeler's lawyer, said the sentence was less than what we expected and certainly less than he deserves, but she said there was relief that the case was over. Keeler told police that Cleary sneaked into her dorm on the eve of winter break, when few people were left on campus, then pushed his way into her room and assaulted her. She was an 18-year-old in her first semester on campus at the time. Senior Judge Kevin Hess said that anyone with daughters or, like him, granddaughters in college would find the crime horrifying. Nevertheless, he said, the defendant has admitted his guilt, he's come forward, and even though 10 to 11 alarming years have passed in the meantime, we wouldn't be here today but for his hope for some kind of forgiveness and contrition. Cleary left Gettysburg after the attack and ultimately finished college in Silicon Valley, California, where he'd grown up. He then got a master's degree and worked for Tesla before moving overseas. In 2019, he sent the Facebook message to Keeler, and she renewed her efforts with police and prosecutors after noticing them a few months later. In 2021, she shared her experience in an Associated Press story on the reluctance of prosecutors to pursue campus sex crimes. Cleary was indicted weeks after the AP story was published. Following a 3-year search, he was extradited from Metz, France, where he had been detained on a vagrancy-related charge in April 2024. In court Monday, Cleary, standing just a few feet away, apologized to Keeler and his father. "I'm committed to getting treatment for mental health and stuff like that as I go forward," he said. Cleary's family members have declined to comment on the case and did not attend most of his court hearings. Keeler, in interviews with the AP, described her repeated efforts to persuade authorities to press charges, starting hours after the assault. "I had been thinking about this moment for 12 years, Keeler said after seeing Cleary in court in July, when he pleaded guilty to second-degree essay. She called it a surreal moment. Authorities in the US and Europe tried to track Cleary down after the indictment but seemed unable to follow his trail, online or otherwise, until his arrest in the unrelated case. Defense lawyer John Abaugh maintained that Cleary was homeless at times and unaware of the charges. Adams County District Attorney Brian Sinnott said he had his doubts but could not prove that Cleary was on the run. The AP typically does not name people who say they have been essayed unless they come forward publicly, as Keeler has done. "The system that failed me a decade ago finally delivered accountability, but at a cost. Evidence was lost. Time passed," she told the court Monday, noting that results of the essay kit she was given that night had been destroyed by the time of the indictment. "My life moved on, but the impact never went away, not for me, not for my family, not for anyone who had to watch this unfold again and again," she said. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. "Op is a effing hero for pushing forward with this the way she did. F the police and prosecutor, she deserved so much better. I truly hope she has supportive people in her life and access to mental health resources." Op's response. "I do. I'm lucky. Thank you." Commenter 2. "The fact that he waited and snuck into her building after her male friend walked her home is just extra insidious to me. He was so calculated about it, and that's chilling. While I wish that it were longer than 4 years, I'm glad that some sense of justice was served. It seemed like she would have to go her whole life without any resolution when she originally posted. I want to use her name since it's in the news articles, but I'm afraid that I'm breaking some rules I don't know about, so just in case, I'll just say that Op is an icon. Love her. Op's response. Thank you so much. Commenter 3. This is one of the few posts on here that moved me to tears. Not just because of the severity of it all, but because of how brave Op was in pursuing this and fighting to make sure that this didn't happen to anyone else. I doubt she would ever see this comment, and I don't know her, but damn, I am so proud and in awe of her courage, strength, and determination. Op's response. I've seen it, and thank you. It means so much.